McLaren are switching from Honda to Renault for 2018 and beyond, a move that brings with it a £100 million price tag if you take into account the loss of free engines from Honda plus their additional sponsorship. How are McLaren proposing to convert those red figures into black in 2018? Well, McLaren reckon they can recoup at least £80 million through improved results and thus more prize money. And on the back of those results, they hope, will come more corporate sponsorship. It's a gamble, no doubt about that, because Renault are not even Ferrari, let alone Mercedes. Still, McLaren have two excellent drivers, great facilities, and lots of hunger. Zak Brown, in his new role, had to do something, and this is it. I asked Craig Scarborough about the engineering implications of the Renault-Honda moves. Well, Craig, what are the repercussions from an engine point of view for McLaren making a switch at this stage of the season for 2018 and indeed, of course, for Toro Rosso and for Honda?
So they've probably planned this around their production schedule. So they've kept the back of the chassis and areas around the side pods quite free so they can be flexible. But the sort of jobs they've got to do are quite complex and quite detailed. The basic simple thing is that the FIA set the bolt patterns for the engine and the gearbox, so that's straightforward, but everything else will be completely different. So the layout of the power unit is different with the turbo. The Renault is at the back of the engine. We know that Honda have their split engine, so there's a lot of volume at the front of the engine which won't be needed because everything's hanging out the back, which obviously then has repercussions on the top bodywork shape. You've then got, obviously, the gearbox then needs to be modified because it needs to cope for a big turbo being sat, whereas with the Honda it wasn't there. Honda and the Renault are very different on cooling, really, really different. Wow. You could, from my observations, I would say that the Renault engine needs lots more turbo intercooling. And if you see the Toro Rosso and the Renault factory car and the Red Bull, they've got two very large intercoolers at the back of the car. Now, McLaren with Honda have had a single, quite large intercooler, but I would say on volume terms they're quite different. So McLaren are really going to have to completely reapportion the shape and the size of the side pods to account for this. On top of that, we already know they're having to accommodate the halo. Obviously, that was confirmed quite late. Some of the specifications were quite late, so they've had to be quite flexible in that area. And also, we know that the halo affects the airflow into the roll hoop above the driver's head, and McLaren have used that quite heavily for cooling energy recovery systems at the back of the car, as well as feeding the engine airbox. Right. So they've got a big aero and a big mechanical change to set up, then like all of the software. And then they've obviously got to get this relationship going with Renault. And we have to remember, obviously, that they are the third major team to use Renault. So who is the factory team? Who gets the upgrades first? Who gets their attention first? So there's a big change going on there. So McLaren, they've got a really huge job over the winter to be ready for those first tests.